Hey everyone, and welcome to Open Mic. Bonsoir Montreal, bonsoir Ottawa, good evening Ottawa, good morning Ireland, and good evening Vermont. We're from everywhere today, talking about spirituality and mediumship. See, spirituality and mediumship doesn't have a language, color, taste, or smell. It's just fluid. It's accessible for everyone. All you have to do is just let go and trust yourself and trust the process. I'm your host, Ramzi Cheety, and I'm a psychic medium along with my co-host, Tanis Coughlin. Tanis.
Hi, guys. How's everyone tonight? I'm a Reiki Master, Celtic Shamanic High Priestess. What else do? I do stuff. I do all sorts of stuff.
You do a lot of stuff.
And I'm a channel and all that stuff.
And tonight is going to be an interesting episode. I have my colleagues, Susie and Kathy, one from Ireland. It's almost midnight, 2 minutes past midnight. It's in the morning. And Vermont is the same time zone, so you're safe, Kathy. Good evening and good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. I'm excited. I'm wide awake, even though it's past midnight. Very excited.
Well, we're excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
So our show is about spirituality and mediumship, and I thought we'll bring in the Spirit Cafe, which is actually about spirituality and mediumship, and we can talk about it. Susie, I know you, at the beginning you were hesitant a bit about mediumship, and things changed for you. So what happened? You're leading the Spirit Cafe, which is awesome.
I know it kind of shocks me too, to be honest. I was a very reluctant medium. Honestly, I thought I was signing up to learn more about awakened mind because that was my area of interest. But I missed out that the third letter, which was of the AMM, was mediumship. So it was kind of an interesting realization to find myself in that program. And then what flabbergasted me was when the information started to flow in and we started to blend and make these connections. And I was, hooked, I would say, because I'm just so fascinated by the capacity that we all have and the information that's out there. So yeah, interesting journey in, I would say.
Wow, major transformation. Major. It's been 3 years now?
3 now, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. And the Spirit Cafe actually started from an offshoot from Janet, which we actually had a show with her over here. If you recall, Tanis, it was Janet. Oh my God,
Connor.
Connor, yes. It was about the what do you call these? The song line.
Remembering the song lines of the witches.
That's the one. That's the one. I have short memory, but it's been almost a year. No, more than a year.
I think it's more than a year. I think it's more like a year and a half, 2 years. Because we've been doing the show for quite a while, and it was at the beginning.
It was at the beginning. Can't remember. It started from over there. We all got together, and wow, what a journey. What a journey. So I'm going to open it for questions. If anybody has any questions from the audience, I know there are a lot of people online. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for joining us, Facebook users. Thanks, everyone. And Tanis, you have any question for the team?
Well, I love the fabric you've got behind you there. So I'd like to know more about that. So it brings up elemental energies for me. So is that something that you focus on?
This is my indoor garden because it's frozen outside. And yeah, absolutely. The elementals and the plants are popping into my life big time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's be surrounded by flowers and talk and hear them.
Beautiful. So what got you started?
I started, well, I've been on this path my whole life, but it frightened me. And so I had experiences where spirit was sort of busting through into my regular day, and I intentionally closed it off multiple times. But I was always fascinated with how the brain works and why does this happen, um, and then I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, I decided I'm either going to um, have to go and live in a hospital somewhere, or I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to make it safe and I'm going to make it fun. And that's exactly what I did. So I learned about it, and now it's where I spend my time and my energy, and also helping people do the same thing if there's fear there about it, and bringing creativity out into the world.
Beautiful.
You do also what I called it spiritual art, mystic art. You want to like touch on that a bit?
So when I started working with Janet, we how did it start? I think it started with one of the angels. Janet wanted to have an image to represent a personality, an angel, and I was doing her deep soul writing, which is channeled writing. And what I found is that if I asked, I was shown an image. I'm a very visual person to begin with. And so I painted the image, and it was interesting and surprising and strange and exciting. And then we just kept going. So I go into my liminal realm and ask to see something, and then I put it on paper.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you're really good at pulling pictures or different free flow of colors into this realm. I remember we sat down, the three of us, we meditated. Susie saw something, scribbled it down, and then all of a sudden you brought life into it with just by meditating on it. I don't know how you do that.
Well, I think my work for pay for 40 years has been in the advertising and marketing realm. And so that was my job, to take ideas and turn them into something visual that you can look at. So that just slid right into doing exactly what I'm doing here. I mean, I literally can see it in my mind. If there are yellow lines or a swirling, that's the hard part, is when it's not something concrete. But yeah, I mean, I've been practicing as an artist since forever. That's what I went to school for. So yeah, seems easy to me.
That's awesome.
And Susie, you do meditation with oh, I should have wrote them down. I'm so bad with names that I forget. You do meditation, so tell us about it a bit.
Yeah, well, I do lots of different types of meditation, to be fair to you. We've just completed a 40-day immersion. Today actually was day 40, called Feast for the Soul. So it's doing a practice every day. We had different teachers on the faculty, but I've been teaching meditation, mindfulness practices for about 12 years now. And I trained originally with Deepak Chopra. And I think for me, that was the kind of the turnaround in my own life when I learned how to meditate and I got a mantra and I really started to practice daily. It was something I never thought I'd ever be able to do. Everything started to change in my own life. And, when you have that experience, you want to share it with everybody else. So I sort of stopped my day job. I put it to the side, closed the company, closed the business. And I really focused on this because I felt when I started to learn about expanded states of consciousness, which is the kind of map of the territory that happens with a regular meditation practice, and I saw what that means, like how that expresses outside of the practice in terms of intuition and creativity, and even that visionary response, and so I wanted to explore that in so much detail that I worked with the Meditation Institute. They were in Sedona at the time, now in Santa Barbara, and I got to work with like hundreds of teachers because they're very dedicated to their practice. And I got to do little experiments and stuff like that with time travel, and that, I suppose, that foundational practice that I have, which I do every day, has really stood to me in terms of, and what else, and what else, and what else, so I've really been on a sort of a meditation trajectory. So, and I love it. I really love it,
I know I don't want to
That's
put you on the spot, and I said I wouldn't, but do you have any tips on those meditation? We're not going to do a meditation thingy now, but any tips for the listeners on? You mentioned time travel, which is phenomenal, and we'll talk about it a bit more. But is there any tips on how to meditate, or what to do, or how to listen? Go ahead.
Yeah, like there's so much out there. It's brilliant. I know when I went looking originally, like it was like there was much less stuff online and apps and things like that. I don't think apps were even around at the time. So you were usually trying to learn it from a book. So you'd be reading a book, you'd be reading about it. You might even get to read a script in a book, but then that on its own wouldn't really kind of give you a meditation practice. So I think the start point is start where you are at, and then use technology. Like literally go online, listen to guided meditations. I think the start point is always getting a teacher to guide you, and start where you're at. Like it might be 5 minutes, and just the key with meditation is consistency, and it's about it's an accumulative practice, and as much as stress is accumulative in your system, meditation like is the antidote to that. It's offsetting it. So, even if you get into the habit of just at the end of your day, doing a 5 or 10 minute meditation can really shift your state as you go into the evening part, so the separation between kind of your work life and your home life or something like that. The best time to do it obviously is when you wake up in the morning, because that's when you're really in the best state, because to come out of the sleep state into meditation is quite easy before you've started to get busy and your mind gets very, very active. So there's a few tips like that you can really learn from teachers, and there's just some fantastic teachers out there. And keep, if you don't like the first one you find, kind of keep going, keep looking, because like some people would love my voice and other people would hate it. They probably wouldn't even know what I was saying with my accent. And so I say always, you don't have to convert to anything. You don't have to become a Buddhist, or you can, whatever works, So that's what I love, is that there's so much out there now, and to really go and explore it with curiosity.
Yeah, I think that's pretty key, right? To resonate with whoever you're working with, whether it's for meditation or any of these practices, right? Really resonating with your teacher or your mentor. It's key.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because also Tanis teaches these things at the Twillo Lifestyle Academy, along with channeling and other programs that she runs. So yes, it's good to get a taste from different places and see what actually resonates with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, because different teachers will teach you different things, and I know I don't think I've ever taken a class that I've said I shouldn't have taken that, because you learn something. Even if it's poorly run, you're learning what you don't want to do. Right? There's always something to learn, always. So taking classes from different people just gives you different perspectives. I was a guest teacher today, actually, in somebody else's program, And we were talking about that, how, she and I have very different views, but some people were able to resonate with what I was saying to understand it, and others needed the more, she did a more scientific, we were talking about dimensions. And so I did the very sort of spiritual, kind of esoteric, and she did more the physics behind it and all of that when we're talking about dimensions. And so, each teacher has their own sort of element that they bring, and some people will understand it with her, some people will understand it with me, some people need both to sort of, process it into their own frameworks. So I just think, collaboration is key these days with everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there are so many ways to approach it. And what I love about the research that's been done now, especially with meditation, there's just so much. Like, so some people really need that proof, or they need that scientific backup, and it's all there. And that's what I love about it. And I hope that that'll happen for mediumship as well. And, what we're doing, that there'll be more and more research, out there to kind of, I suppose it stands up on its own, and people can kind of rely on that, and not doubt what they're getting, or doubt themselves, or come from fear, or, it's a good start. It can be a good start point.
Yeah, it's what I try to explain to people is, because you can't prove it with science doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It might mean that science hasn't caught up to it yet. Right? Our science is not perfect either. We can't measure everything. And so if we can't measure it, people think it doesn't exist. So, we have to take into account that we're all on our evolutionary path as well as science. And so we are growing, and there's certainly a lot more research. They're able to do a lot more, but we still have a ways to go, I think, in proving some of these things that we all already know intuitively and that are part of us. Mm-hmm.
Quick question on mediumship. I know there's something that we try to do at the Spirit Cafe is move away from the concept of calling in spirits. And I know one person who actually came to the cafe, saw it, and retreated and said, "No, I'm scared." And the fear was based on I can't speak for that person per se, but usually the fear is based from preconceived ideas about how mediumship works. So we kind of designed the cafe in a different way so that it blends with a cafe mode, a playful gathering where it's not a mediumship anymore. It's a healing gathering. That's what it is. At the end of the day, it's a healing gathering. So do you want to elaborate on that point a bit? Kathy, Susie.
Do you want to go, Kathy?
What I would say, it does. It happens every time we gather, where the messages are always supportive and loving and positive, and they can be emotional, but it's always it's reassurance. And it seems like people, when we sign off, people are just filled with gratitude that they heard just maybe one small little detail. And it amazes me every time, because it's just the simplest little things that can really rearrange what you've been thinking in your mind, maybe your entire life, since childhood, since someone died, decades worth of pain. Just, it literally evaporates. It's like magic, right?
Absolutely. And we've seen it on multiple occasions during the cafes last year, where healing just happened. And the person that was not looking for it received it. It was just a spontaneous thing, like the universe conspired to get the right people to pass on the right messages to the right person at that point in time.
Because it's not contrived at all.
Yeah.
Right? I got a message from an uncle that passed last summer. He wasn't on my radar at all. Right? So that it was completely random. And that's what happens. I think it's so interesting that we're there to learn how to do this mediumship, but we're receiving the healing.
Mm.
Yeah, I really noticed, because we set out with the intention to not try to, come from a book or a teaching, or we really wanted to go in with a sort of an open curiosity, but really from a compassionate place as well, so there's a lovely kind of a kind willingness of everybody. And because there's no sort of recordings or anything, there's no pressure on anybody to have anything happen, it's just like, let's see what happens when we come together. And like you said, it becomes like this sort of it's like a divine appointment. That's what I see. Because sometimes people arrive in it and they don't know what they've even arrived at. They're like, what is this? But they know they had to be there. And then we watch as somebody else who comes in there, not sure what they're doing there, receives this incredible message. And it just all has its own, it's phenomenal to bear witness to every single time. It's so different.
Absolutely. I'm just opening it up. If anybody has any questions from the listeners about mediumship, about spirituality, about the Spirit Cafe, about spiritual or mystic art, please feel free to ask them. As always, we're here to bring in more info to the public. Tanis, do you have any questions?
So let's find out from both of you what your strengths are in terms of your intuition. So I'm kind of referring to Claire's. So which ones are your strength? I'm assuming that Kathy, yours is probably clairvoyance, and it comes through in your art. Do you have others that you rely on heavily as well when you're doing this work?
I have learned to rely on all of them, and Susie and Ramzi taught me that. We try and engage all of our senses. So sometimes it's physical, or I'll hear something. Yeah, Ramzi taught me how to work with metaphors. You see one thing, but it means this over here. And yeah, so I'm trying hard to sort of be entirely present, not just looking for an image that passes me. Yeah.
Awesome. And Susie?
I had an artistic background as well, so I'm very visual. So visions come very kind of flow into me. But then what I learned was about bringing in that maybe a second sense, which is maybe the feeling I'm getting. But then what I noticed was sometimes if I'm not quite getting it, or maybe I'm delivering what I'm getting, but it's not landing yet, I'll get an audio, like I'll hear something. And so sometimes I notice that it could be coming through, words or visuals, or then that feeling. And I might be making notes. I usually start writing things down just so that at least once I get it out, the rest can keep coming through. And a few times what really kind of took me by surprise is when you'd get a scent of something, or a really strong smell or taste. Mm-hmm. They'd be the two lesser ones for me, definitely, the taste and the smell. But wow, when it happens, it's really quite. I remember once working with a lady and I kept smelling donuts, and I was like, wow, okay. I was really perplexed because it was quite new to me at that point. I was like, and
I usually call that a craving, but just saying.
I was like, will I just add it? Will I say? I didn't know whether I would say it or not. You know? But as soon as I said it, she was like, "Oh, that's," and she knew exactly who this person was.
Yeah,
because that was a really strong part of their relationship. The lady used to bake and bring them over for occasions, and it kind of completed the contact, confirming the contact. So I feel like spirit is kind of working with whatever it can access through us, so there's that sort of playfulness too, to allow it, and so your mind is kind of second guessing it a little bit, like is there a donut in the room? Where is someone cooking? Like, where is this coming from? But that's what's really been fascinating for me when those other ones come through. It's like the information is flowing out there, flowing through you, I suppose, flowing out through you.
One of the weirdest ones I had was an orange popsicle.
Ooh.
It wasn't a taste; it was a visual of an orange popsicle. But I had asked for some confirmation on who this was. Tell me something that this person will recognize that it's yours. And I saw an orange popsicle, and I was like, "Really? Are you sure?" They're like, yeah. Okay. I said, okay, so I don't know, but I'm seeing an orange popsicle. She's like, oh, that was her favorite. And she totally knew it was her. I was like, okay. Because that was an unexpected one for me. I didn't expect that. I was expecting, a lot of times it's jewelry or, something like that. If it's a visual thing, something that they really recognize as being that person's, or, hat or whatever. So I was taken aback with that. So I get where you're coming from with the donuts.
Yeah, I got a weird one time too, which was the stars. It turns out that the person lived in the UK, outside of the city. And his favorite pastime, he had what do you call it? Telescope.
Mm-hmm.
He will look at the stars, and all I see is stars, constellations, stars. And it turns out that that's his hobby.
Right.
That was his hobby when he was around. I know it comes in really different shapes, senses, visual, feelings sometimes.
Yeah.
But here, let's go down one level. Where do you get that from? How do you get that? How do you get to see all of these things? What makes you guys so special? And you can see that and hear and feel and get colors out of thin air and put it together. And here you have a painting, it takes you literally 5 seconds. And here it is, it pops out. So what makes you special? What would the listeners have to do to get that? I don't want to call it. To get into the flow, rather than to call it a gift, but to get into the flow, to be able to extract this information out of thin air. What do we do?
I think it's about being really relaxed and not taking ourselves too seriously, not trying at all. If you try it, I feel like it doesn't work at all. You have to totally surrender, and it's sort of like you're almost daydreaming. You're in a slightly daydreamy sort of, because you're kind of lolling around, you're hanging out sort of, and then you can feel when this information's coming. Like for me, I can sense when it's coming through, and yeah, I don't consider myself special at all, to be honest, but the experience is special in itself, because when I usually get up from here and I leave, my desk after my computer after working like this, I'm just always in awe. Like, where did that information come from? Like, where did it come from? Where was it before I went in there? Where is it now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you recall doing the website, who did that for you? I'm still convinced that what I saw was a guide that helped you, uh, that opened up your creative faculties to be able to do the whole website in a sitting almost.
Yeah, the website kind of did itself. I genuinely didn't feel like we were doing that website. I know that sounds a little wacko, but it's like, you know, it's like we kind of opened a treasure chest and it was already in there. It was a really interesting experience, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's awesome when that stuff happens.
Mm.
Mhm.
Kathy, anything on your end?
Yeah, my first reaction is to say I don't think it's special. I think that it's available to all of us. For me, I had to get rid of a busy mind. So it's kind of what Susie's saying. I don't meditate, but I do other things to get into that place. And since I do use it for, I'll label some of the art that I do that way work, because it is, to support the intensives that we do. I'm combining both of those worlds where I actually need to see something and produce something. But it has to stay fun and playful. And for me, it's I call it my gypsy eyes. I just have to be curious. I can't have my own agenda. That does not work. I just have to, have a completely open, wide eyes, just wondering what could possibly happen. And that's when the best things pop in. They're like little surprise gifts.
Curiosity is a key.
It is. Yeah.
Because a lot of times that we get an image or we get a sensation or whatever it is, and we just brush it off rather than hold that space for it and figure out where it's coming from and why. Because there's always a message. There's always a message, and we're always guided. And okay, the four of us, we've experienced that on a day. We experience that on a daily basis. We're always guided, but when we're rushing through life, we kind of put those barriers around us like this, and we're going through a tight tunnel that we can't see what's happening, see, feel, all of it. So trusting, relaxing, allowing, and that makes information flow easily and brings us to where we want it to go faster. And I don't know if I said it on the show one time, is that I was walking on the street and I get those messages sometimes, and they don't just come with a, hey, by the way, what do you think? Could you just go to the side? There's too much noise over here, or a lot of people. No, it's just like, kaboom! Here is now. This is like now. It has to come out, and I just stop, take a deep breath, allow it to expand within me. I get the message, I pass it on, or I keep it for later, whatever it is required. So these messages are always for a healing part, but the main point is to be aware of what is happening around us in our physical and etheric field.
And we learned in the intensive we were working on last year at this time that our bodies are like a pendulum. Many of us weren't aware that when you're out there, you're in a group, you're in a new place, you're near a powerful tree, that you're feeling this sensation for a reason. And that's the communication, and to have that presence of mind that okay, just like what you said, I'm going to calm down and I'm going to listen now. Instead of being overwhelmed by an emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, when you were speaking there, Ramzi, I was getting a sort of an impression of, how this used to come to me before I really learned and kind of dived into it and did more research and learning myself. So kind of when I was a bit more like unbeknownst to me, walking down the street, and then suddenly it's like, well, okay, and that feeling, it's like you can't sidestep it, you can't, it's right there in front of you, it like arrives in, whether it's for you to give a message to somebody else or it's something for you. It can be one or the other, but like it's profound actually, because that actually is happening the whole time. And as you said, the blinkers are up, but when you're really busy with other stuff. And so what I loved, what I was always afraid of opening that up, was that I couldn't shut it down again, and that I'd be sort of overwhelmed by it and it might take over because it was so profound. But what I learned then through the practice and through working with you guys is like, it's my foot is on the gas, and I can, like you said, you can really stand into it and stay present with it and do that. And then sometimes, like, I've been in situations, like when I was in the UK, and I just was like, you know what, I'm shut down now, I'm closed, I'm not open for business. I'm, what if it's like late at night or something like that, I'm like, I'm done. And I'll turn on some music or something. I'll be just like, oh. So I had to learn how to manage that, so that I didn't kind of become enslaved by, people coming in and asking me to do stuff, or getting messages or something. So yeah, I think that's something that's really can change it to become not that you become the power over it, but you do have the choice at the end of the day whether or not you're going to act on something or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, free will is a prime directive, right? For all of us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I often speak to my students about visualizing like a tuning knob, so you can tune into the different dimensions, so that it gives a sense of that sort of control, or like you mentioned, a foot on the pedal sort of thing. You can turn it up or turn it down, or tune into a different frequency depending on where you're at. I often do that.
Yeah, that's I think one of the fears that stops people from engaging into that. Not engaging, but diving into their own self. Because diving into your own self, meaning you're going to see a lot of things, including your shadow. Mm-hmm. And also, you're opening up the gates for not opening up the gates. Opening up the gates is kind of freaky a bit, but aligning yourself with the universe. Raising your frequency to the right level, whereby messages will come in to help you heal yourself. And people are afraid of, once we get to that point, how do I shut it down? Am I going to be enslaved, like Susie was mentioning? And that's actually a genuine question. And I feel that a lot of people, struggle with it. Mm-hmm. So, Tanis, how do you shut it down?
I shut it down with the knob. Visualizing a knob. Or I will, I'll often do some a tubing technique that I often do. That will help as well. It brings in light so that you have more sort of, I want to say control over, but control in what you're doing in terms of whether stuff is coming at you or not. Yeah. We've got some interesting users at the moment. So yeah, it's really about, whether you decide to allow or not, right?
Yeah.
And we do have choice. So we just tell them that at one point I was overwhelmed and didn't realize I was overwhelmed. So for a lot of, I had kind of blocked stuff out and was very much sort of feeling the energy of it without being able to access what I was feeling. And that came on for me as anxiety. So I had anxiety a lot in my younger years before I sort of delved into this and allowed and started to learn more about it. And one of the hints that was given to me was to form a committee with my guides. And so I came home because I was in a class, a Reiki with Crystals class, and I was sitting there, and I wasn't particularly clairaudient at the time. And my teacher stopped mid-sentence, and she's like, "You have a bunch of ascended masters yelling at you all the time. I don't know how you deal with that. You need to take care of that." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And so she told me to come home and form a committee. So I came home, and I only sort of knew I was working with Archangel Michael and Saint Mark at the time. So I came home and I just went into meditation. I'm like, "Okay, can you guys be my committee, please?" And I felt like a heart opening. And then I said, "Okay, the rest of you need to go through them." And it was like all of a sudden the energy just calmed right down, and it made it way more manageable. It was almost like when we have a power outage and all of a sudden you have that, you realize how much background noise there is actually going on. So it was like that for me. And so when they start to get out of hand, I just tell them to stop. Just stop now. I just need a break. Just stop.
And Kathy, you had an experience one time with the cafe, and you were surrounded by multiple spirits. Do you recall what happened?
Are you talking about the time when it was one person, but then the other one was the one who had the message?
Yes, but they were all talking and you got confused between them.
Well, you got me through that.
Yes, it's that same technique.
Yeah, you spoke to me about where to put my attention, and we let the one person go and do his thing so that the other person could step up and say what they wanted and needed to say. Yeah, interesting, right? It's no different than being in a room with multiple people.
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. 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 It's just all you have to do is just, okay, could you just hold on for a sec, go do your thing, let me talk to this person while I'm talking. So I'm talking to this spirit. And if I don't want to talk to anybody, like, guys, just go away. Go away. For tonight, the cafe is closed. We'll talk tomorrow. Bring your coffee and come over early in the morning.
Yeah, put up the opening hours. That's what I say. It's like I'm available between, and just organizing it. I think is really good for me. When I didn't know how to manage it, I would ground. Like I would go out in nature. I'd hang out with a tree, or walk naked, not naked in the grass, barefoot. Barefoot on the grass, and or go to the beach or something like that. I would just take myself into nature is what I would normally do to really ground myself. And I had a great mentor at one stage, and I remember calling her up going, "Oh my gosh," she was like, "Go and get a bowl of soup somewhere, make sure it's root vegetables, like just ground yourself." And I was like, "Okay." So yeah, it's great to have tools and kind of techniques how to navigate things.
Absolutely. And they're all so simple. They're all so simple. But because we're not exposed to them on a daily basis, or because we hide, and that's the key, we hide. This is something that we're not supposed to be doing. It could be against some people's religions, beliefs, and so on and so forth. It becomes part of society, and now society is opening up for that. And there are a lot of people that are still in between and not sure, so they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's so simple to allow information to come, to take a break, to allow things to be on hold. It's as simple. It's like you're sitting with a group of people at a cafe having a chat, and then just talking to one person at a time rather than everybody chatting all at once. And unless you're an Arab, all of them, they have to talk together and they have to be loud.
Well, I mean, it's to the spirit's advantage to not talk all at once, right? Because we can't understand all of it at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
And another thing is, Kathy, you brought in something interesting during the opening last week, and before let me answer just one question from Linda. Linda saying, I was happy one day to hear that you can close your counter just like when dealing at a customer service booth or go for a break. Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. It's a simple little act that just puts a barrier, or just ends or puts things on hold until we are ready to get to it. Back to what I was saying is that during the the opening party last week, you brought in something interesting, Kathy. You called it visual medicine. What is that?
Visual medicine is a technique that was developed by my teacher, Suzette Clough. And you know how Susie said she talked to a tree, and I said I listened to the flowers. Well, anywhere we look, there can be messages, right? The world is talking to us, creation is talking to us. So it's a form of painting that doesn't use a brush. I'm not controlling anything. And you might work with a focusing word. You might have a question. In a way, it's an oracle. And so I make these paintings, and then you can take any painting and do so many different things with it. You can write, you can look at it, you know, you can meditate on it, you can journey with it. But it's to open your creativity, and you can't explain it, so it kind of gets you in that place where now I'm curious because I can't really figure it out. Why does that look so much like I had one that has like a weasel on it just recently, and so I have to pay attention to that. You know, is there a message there, and why was it a weasel? I don't know. I haven't written about it yet. So it's another form. It's kind of divination. It's an oracle. It's a journey tool. It's a healing tool times a million. And it's also really fun because it's got colors and textures and patterns. It looks like moss. It looks like lichen. It looks like a tree. It looks like the mother. So it forces you to engage your imagination and listen.
It's beautiful. You're going to be doing that at the cafe too, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. We will explore and have fun. Yes. Yeah.
That's the word, fun.
Yeah.
Fun. If you don't have fun, just don't bloody do it.
Exactly. Well, it's a high vibration. It raises our vibration, right? To have fun.
Totally.
To be playful.
I feel like it'll be something a little different as well. A lot of the guidance that I've been getting in relation to, you know, what this is possibly going to be is, it's like you're redefining it a little bit, you know, from the traditional kind of what it has been up to now, and in a very playful way as well. I've been working a lot with plants and trees, and I've been kind of looking at where, you know, plants are, you know, becoming like the medium between the plant world and, you know, our world with messages. I've seen also people who do it with animals, not just dogs. Actually, there were horses and cats and stuff like that. And in another way, it was like kind of reversing it, as opposed to us going in and waiting for, you know, a family or loved one or ancestor of somebody, you know, to come in and give the message. It's like turning it around and send the information out into the spirit realm, like put our dead to work, so to speak. You know, so if there's some sort of ancestral, you know, karmic cycle, or there's something that's happening, patterning or something, you know, we could really start to work with that as well, and just make requests to them. You know, I feel like it's not one way. I feel like it's a two-way communication, and we're finding ways of making that, you know, I suppose it's clear intention, it's setting the kind of scene that we're co-creating this. You know, that's what that's what it feels like it is emerging for me personally, anyway.
There's also something else Susie, sorry, I'm focused on you a bit. There's also something else that you do, or you're gonna be doing. A couple of days ago, we talked about a seamstress, which is yeah. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Sorry, did I put you on the spot?
No. I trust impeccably. This is what happens when we get together. You know, we can never plan for it, because we really will just kind of flow in the present, what's coming up. So yeah, when we were talking recently, and you had this vision of the seamstress, it was really clear to me what it was, and it was to do with sutras. And they're very ancient, you know, you could call them a saying, you know, from Vedanta, from, you know, Sanskrit, or, you know, ancient wisdom traditions. And what it feels like to me is that when we use a sutra practice, it's part of a meditation practice that I do personally, it's seeding our consciousness with something. So it's like you're stitching on, or you're seeding yourself with something. And it's coming to me gradually that, you know, whatever we're putting in now, whatever we're seeding our consciousness with now, is what we're going to experience, you know, around the corner or in the near future. And so I've been doing some kind of research and experiments with retrocausality as well. So I feel like all of these things are kind of coming up now to play with a little bit. So almost like when we get some of the information, that it's, how do I put it without confusing the life out of you? Like sometimes when it's coming in, it's like you get the answer before you've asked the question, if that makes sense. I know a couple of weeks ago, Kathy messaged me, and she was out in nature. She got a really clear message. I think it was around New Year's Eve or New Year's Day or something, as far as I remember. And she sent it to me. And I knew it was for me. I knew I could feel it. It really resonated, but I didn't know what it was the answer to. But I trusted that I'd know. And a couple of weeks later, or less than that, maybe 10 days later, I was in that moment, and I was like, this is what Kathy was referencing to me. So that's why I love the idea of creating the community, so that there's the space and time and the getting to know each other and comfortable with each other, that if something just comes to you, you can pop it in the group, or you can pop it in the message. And so it's not just what's happening inside the confines of the cafe time, because, you know, you could have a dream, or, you know, I've definitely had really clear visuals for Ramzi at times. I know you've had them for me as well. You could we go on a call and we think we're going to be talking about this thing, but we're talking about that. So yeah. So yeah, when you said about the seamstress, you were like, you're going to be sewing something. I was like, so that's you giving me what you're getting. And then for me, that was, oh, you're working with the sutras now. So yeah, and I think that's what's brilliant. It's about becoming really receptive and how to become a good sitter as well. You know, how to be a receptacle to receive the information as much as somebody who's getting the message, let's say.
Yeah, that happens with everyone that I know that is awake and aligned. Um, it's fun. As you know, last year it's been crazy. I traveled everywhere, and every time I travel somewhere, I'm leaving that country. There's someone that calls me and says, "I need this. Where are you?" I go, "I'm leaving, going back home," or I just land and I get like the minute I land, I turn on my phone and then I get a text from Tana saying, "Oh, by the way, this thing." It's just the alignment, the connection. It's just phenomenal. But you can't make it up.
Nope, can't
Yeah,
make this stuff up.
it happened the other day with us again. Kathy didn't it? Kathy must have woke up where you are in the middle of the night and sent me a message saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much." And I was like, "What for?"
Oh, when with
Yeah,
I know, and I was so happy. And part of this is also just trusting and the community. We need our collaborators, our human collaborators too, because if I don't have anywhere for that my hit to go, then I don't know that it works. But the more time you put it out there, and then Andy writes in an hour and says, "No, I didn't." The coincidence, we had a very close timeline coincidence that I was so excited for, and I knew I just had to be patient, and then it worked out. And plus it was a beautiful synchronicity. So
yeah. Just to fill in that gap, because Kathy had asked me to ask somebody I knew about her doing something with him, work-wise, and I said, "Oh yeah," and I forgot about it for a couple of days. And when I
and
woke up,
you didn't write on that text that you were going to do it or anything. I didn't even know if you I didn't know if you saw it. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm bothering her, and I'm just gonna let it drop."
I just forgot. Like I seen it, but I had, I was doing something else at the time. And then 2 days later, I woke up and I was like, "Oh my God, I must do that thing." And so I sent that message out, and then the next thing I see this message from Kathy saying, "Thank you so much," and I was like, "Gee, I barely just sent it out. Like, how did that happen so fast?" Because we're all in different countries and totally different time zones. And it turned out that when I sent, the person had already messaged her and accepted her. It had nothing to do with me whatsoever. But then he was traveling to the UK and he saw my message and he was like, I said, "I guess we're in some sort of a time loop thing going on here."
And that happens too.
Yeah, because especially with the time zones, I know we did get a bit confused, but basically I said to Kathy, "You did that by yourself." But like I came in at the end, but it was nothing to do with me. Like, so yeah.
That's
Funny,
awesome.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're almost close to the hour. We're 1 minute and 4 seconds left. Do you guys want to give us timing of the cafe, what's happening, where people can find you, find us, and so on?
Sure. It's starting. I'll give my local time. Maybe you guys can do your local time. I think it's 5 p.m. GMT in Ireland and England. So that would be 6 Central European time. And it's noon Eastern, I think,
Yes.
standard time.
It would be noon. Yeah.
And so we're starting tomorrow, the 24th. Oh, it's tomorrow for me already.
Yep.
The 24th of February, and with the Medium Mystics. And so it's for about an hour and 50 minutes. You can drop in and join just for one session, or you can totally save and sign up for the 10 months that we're committing to for now. But I feel like it's an offering that's going to expand as we go through the next few months as well. It's monthly, usually the 3rd or 4th Saturday of the month. And it's on www.spiritcafe.ca.
And it's informal. It's just a meeting of like minds. It's collaborative. It's friendly. It's fun. It's not recorded, so that we can share whatever we need to share. And there's a lot of learning that happens. Yeah, because it's really doing the practice. So real time. What about this? What do we do about this? I had a physical response one time, and I couldn't shake it, and so Ramzi was there to say, here's what you do. So it's beautiful. Crash course. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, so we are live with the Cafe of 2024 on February 24th. It's amazing, 24. I think there's a full moon or something happening at the same time, which was not planned. By the way, was not planned. Yes, so join us tomorrow. It's going to be interesting. You'll find us at the spiritcafe.ca. That's spiritcafe.ca. And thank you for being with us tonight, Tanis, and our lovely, what do you call them? I want to call you partners, but I'm not sure what you are.
But they're our guests tonight.
You're a guest tonight. Absolutely. You're our guest tonight. Thank you very much. And especially Susie, because it's 1 a.m. right now, your time. You need to get some rest to be ready for tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 or something my time, and we're going to have a blast tomorrow. And for our listeners, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your questions, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a nice evening.